Hi everyone, need to have a conversation with you about what it is to be woke. The interesting thing about wokeness is that those people who object to people being woke are usually fearful that they might be asleep. The people that are usually advocating for, the people that are normally attacking those people that are supposedly woke are usually those people who just don't want to accept change. No matter what happens in their world, they refuse to accept that the world itself is shaping a little bit differently from what they would normally like. And what we discover is that they are normally people that are the sleepy people, the opposite people to woke, usually conservatives. People who sit on the right wing of politics, who object to change in any and all of its forms. In fact, it's interesting to note that wokeness, according to my most favourite source, which is Wikipedia, is an English adjective meaning alert to racial prejudice and discrimination. It originated in about 2010 with the BLM movement and people saying, well, you know, racial discrimination and the way in particularly African Americans and anybody of colour is being treated in the United States is no longer appropriate, and that we're going to make a stand, so we're going to protest the fact that we are denigrated, discriminated against in our communities, and we want change. And as a result of that, this became known as the woke movement. Now, the right wing in particular are offended in the most egregious possible way about this notion that there are a group of people out there who are not just coloured people, but LGBTQI plus people, people with a different sense of who they want to be and their own personal identity. And that stuff really is confronting to those that are narrow-minded, who are not able to see that there are people who demand to have a different view of the world to their own. They cannot stand that, particularly the Christian right. They are as bonkers and as crazy as you could imagine any group of people to be, and they are the ones pushing back against anything that might confront their own narrow version of the world.
The silence that you're not hearing from major corporations, that's a sign of the pushback against the woke invasion of our culture.
They're the ones that have a distorted view of the world, and they object to anybody taking an alternative view to their own. And we need to make sure that we who sit further on the left, I need to say, are continually pushing back against the sleepiness that sits on the right. And the reason why this is important is because unless we're pushing back, unless we're doing something that's demonstrating that there are these groups of people who feel alienated, who feel separated from others, that they need to be included in society in general, and we need to understand what it is that are their issues. You know, we need to empathise with the way that they're experiencing their world and be accepting of that world. The thing is, and the thing that strikes me in the most fascinating way, is that none of the way that these people are behaving on the left, or those people that are woke, the way they are confronting the sleepiness that sits on the right is really about self-identity, being able to identify who oneself is, and having other people hopefully accept that. So when you're striving to be different, when you're working so hard to find ways to be included in society, and then you get pushed aside and you get ignored, or you get spoken down to, or you get dismissed, or in some cases you have violence perpetrated against you, then those people, the people that have that violent response to what they're saying, further diminishes who they are. We need in our society to have a space in which all of these people can talk, that we can communicate with all of them in a way which is at least listening to them, not to discount, not to dismiss them entirely, not to be abusive of them, And I think, ironically enough, I think it's fair enough that if we're going to fight the right around their sense of sleepiness, then we need to be able to not become as aggressive as them, not to threaten to kill or to dismiss it. But well, I guess what I'm saying is, if we're going to listen to, if we're advocating that those people that are discriminated against are not being heard, then we need to be able to find a way to hear those people that sit on the other side and to understand why it is that they think what they think. The interesting thing is that we won't really get a discussion from them about what's happening for them, whereas on the left side, we're likely to get a discussion about how it feels to be discriminated against, what it means to have people tell us that we are less than, that we are not fitting into their version of society. Where the interesting thing is that on one side of this, emotions and how the experience makes these people feel is quite evident. On the other side, to get these other people to start to talk about how this experience is for them, being confronted by what's happening with the people on the left, just won't happen. Because this particular group of people on the right, all they ever want to do is blame the other group of people for their own inadequacies. So they refuse to be able to confront actually what's happening for them. They refuse to understand that it is their narrow version of the world that is causing them distress, and they're not prepared to make any shifts in order for that to change. And as long as that presents as a problem, there will always be this incredible divide. People will not be able to find middle ground because one side is refusing to admit the internal turmoil that they are confronted with about a different version or a different view of the world. And until we get to that point, nothing is likely to change. And it's sad because the only side that can motivate that change is the right of politics. And they're not prepared to do so because they're friggin' cowards. In a nutshell, they are just cowards. And the people who have the courage to be able to confront the right wing are those people on the left who are declaring that their version of the world is different and it needs to be accepted, and that, the interesting thing is these days there is this increased sense of sexuality. What does sexuality mean? Who defines what we are, who we are, how we feel about ourselves, and that is becoming quite dominant. But the issue around race has been there for a long time, forever, basically. And that particular issue is being highlighted as well at this particular point in time. Not just the stuff around sexuality and identity, but also race. And we're seeing a lot more attacks on the Jewish community, on African Americans, people of colour generally, because people now feel that they can talk about their prejudices more openly, and it tends to be accepted. Now, this is going to create a massive problem for everybody because it means that more and more attacks will be made on those people that are disadvantaged, and the people that have got the power and authority, and those people with the loudest voices, which normally comes from the right, unfortunately, they will exert their power and authority on others, and they will cause other people to suffer even more than they're already suffering. So we're going to see an exacerbation of this problem. Everything's going to get worse. It is not going to get better because one side refuses to have to listen to the other. Let me know what you think. Put a comment down below and let me know what you think about this subject and whether you're a woke person or whether you're asleep. Thanks everybody. Take care. Look after yourselves and be safe.